In the little town where I grew up, little community rather, most folks there attended the same church. It was a pretty small church, but a pretty small town. Most everybody there attended church there, if they went to church at all. And the preacher there, he was well known by all in the community to not own an automobile. He just didn't have one. I don't know if he couldn't afford it, what the problem was, but he didn't have an automobile. He rode a bicycle everywhere he went. Well, he was known to have that bicycle no matter where he was going. If he was going to the funeral home, if he was going to the hospital, he was going to somebody's house to visit, he was on that bicycle. Well, there was this old man, him and his son, they were riding down the street one day, and they saw the fella, the preacher that is, walking down the sidewalk. So the old man pulled up, he said, rolled his window down, he said, "Preacher," he said, "what in the world are you doing? What are you doing walking? Where's your bicycle at?" And the preacher stopped and he shook his head. He said, "Man, you ain't gonna believe this, but somebody stole my bicycle, and I am on foot." So the old man said, "Man, preacher, that is terrible. Hop in and I'll give you a ride, So he got in, and he's taking him where he wanted to go, and he said, "Preacher, I'll tell you what, this Sunday when you're up there preaching, give you a little advice. You get up there and you preach on the 10 Commandments. And when you get to that 8th commandment, thou shalt not steal, I want you to take a pause, and I want you to eyeball everybody in the congregation. Just give it a gaze across there and look at everybody's faces. Look into their eyes. I believe somebody's going to give themselves away, because they're going to have that look of guilt on their face." So that Sunday morning rolled around, and the preacher said, "That's a pretty good idea. I think I'm going to do that." So he got up there, he preached and he preached hell and fire and brimstone. He wore himself down. He was soaking wet, and he got into the 10 Commandments, and he got all the way up to the 8th commandment, thou shalt not steal. And we got to the 8th commandment. He didn't even slow down. He just kept a preaching, never slacked up. Didn't look at anybody. He just kept preaching, kept wiping sweat. Well, after the service, the old man walked up. He said, "Preacher, what in the world happened? I know you preached on the 10 Commandments, but you didn't do what I told you to do. When you got to that 8th commandment, you never slacked up. You didn't even look at the congregation. What's that all about?" He said, "Well, sir, it's like this. When I got to that 7th commandment, thou shalt not commit adultery, I remembered where I left my bicycle.